across Scotland and Northern Ireland, pushing the cloud and rain then into northern England, parts of West Wales overnight. That, of course, means there'll be a lot more cloud in the sky on Tuesday night into the start of Wednesday compared to previous nights. And so any frost and fog tending to be more limited, not entirely out of the question, just not as widespread as recent mornings. The cloud and showery rain moves south across central and southern parts during Wednesday morning, quite quickly clearing so that after lunch many places are in the bright or even sunny skies behind the weather fronts. Showers follow, those showers turning wintry across northern Scotland, and then on Thursday into the east of England as well as eastern Scotland. It's going to feel cold on Thursday and Friday, but there will be some sunshine.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello, good evening and welcome. My name is Dominic Frisby, and coming up in just a moment, it is Headliners. Two comedians from the UK circuit will be attempting the impossible, which is to extract some humour from tomorrow's papers, or today if you're watching the early morning show. But before we can do that, it is time for the news. So here is one of the queens of news reading. It is Polly Middlehurst.
What an introduction. Good evening. Polly Middlehurst in the GB newsroom. And our top story today, the Home Secretary says the UK is now sharing intelligence with the United States following the synagogue terror attack in Texas. Malik Faisal Akram, a British-born man from Blackburn, was shot dead after holding 4 people hostage during a 10-hour standoff on Saturday. His brother said he was suffering from mental health issues. Meanwhile, 2 teenagers have been arrested in Greater Manchester and are being questioned as part of the investigation. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, addressed the Commons today and said this.
I had a bilateral call with my counterpart for Homeland Security in the US. And let me just say a few things. First of all, we are working with the FBI. In fact, we have been since the incident took place, and there's a great deal of intelligence sharing and work taking place on this. Of course, when it comes to our own domestic homeland, there are a range of measures that are being undertaken right now, including protective security for the Jewish community.
Well, a busy day for the Home Secretary. She was also warning MPs to be on their guard about foreign agents. It follows claims that solicitor Christine Lee, who made donations to UK political parties, is in fact a suspected Chinese spy. Priti Patel said Miss Lee's connections with MPs were deliberately cultivated to make the UK government more favourable to Chinese interests. In other news today, the body of a British woman who went missing during a tsunami in Tonga has been recovered by her husband. Angela Glover, originally from Brighton, was swept away by extreme waves as they inundated the Pacific island following an undersea volcanic eruption. Her brother says she was trying to rescue dogs from an animal shelter when she was swept away. Here, the Culture Secretary has confirmed the BBC licence fee is to be frozen for at least the next 2 years. That's despite BBC bosses insisting there's a strong case for taxpayers to continue investing in the corporation. Nadine Dorris wants to find a new funding model for the British broadcaster. And you've been hearing Prince Harry says he and his family can't return to the UK because it's too dangerous. He's now challenging a Home Office decision which prevents him from personally paying for police protection. He lost his taxpayer-funded security when he moved to the States. Prince Harry says his private team from the States doesn't have adequate jurisdiction or intelligence in the UK. A giant asteroid bigger than any building on Earth is expected to soar past us tomorrow. Even though it's more than 1.5 miles wide, scientists are saying it poses no threat to our planet. The asteroid will pass 1.2 million miles away, which is more than 5 times the moon's distance from us. We're safe. On TV, online and through your radio on DAB+, you're with GB News. Now more from headliners.
Thank you, Polly. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Headliners. I'm Dominic Frisby, and this is the show in which comedians who are plying their trade on the UK comedy circuit get a chance to ply their trade on TV by reviewing tomorrow's papers the night before, or today's papers if you happen to be watching the early morning broadcast. And before we meet tonight's guests, let's potter through Tuesday's headlines. Here they are. They have just gone to press. And we start with the Daily Mail, which has British troops sent to Ukraine. This is a story we'll be covering in just a moment, but fears there is a Russian invasion of Ukraine is just days away. And there's also a picture of Meghan, Princess Meghan, looking very glamorous. Now she complains to BBC over Amol Rajan's Royals podcast. That's a story we won't be covering, I'm delighted to report. And next we have The Guardian and Cummings. This is a story we will be covering. Dominic Cummings accuses the PM of lying over Number 10 party. There's also the UK sending the anti-tank weapons to the Ukraine. There is a picture of Boris out jogging. He normally posts pictures of himself out jogging when he's trying to boost his popularity. He's decided to run in used Smarties containers today. And there's also, The Guardian has inquiry launched into moan over VIP lane deal. On to the Telegraph, and lots of stories on the front cover of the Telegraph. I rather suspect this is all part of Operation Red Meat, which is suddenly for the government to announce all sorts of initiatives which will make them popular with the public in order to distract from their own failings. But here, in order of where they appear on the Telegraph front page, we have tougher powers for magistrates to clear trial backlog. Raab announces historic sentencing reform, freeing up judges to deal with major crimes. Magistrates will now have the power to send people to jail for a year. There's also Nadine Dorris and her attack on the dinosaur licence fee rules. That's her attack on the BBC. Priti Patel is warned that double the number of migrants could cross the Channel this year. And we have this story, NHS frontline staff must get jab in 2 weeks or face sack. This is all part of the NHS's plan to inflict staff shortages on itself, as well as a plethora of unfair dismissal legal battles. We move on to the Financial Times next, which reports that ministers explore paying energy suppliers to ease household bills. The more intervention there is in the energy market, the more problems they create for themselves. There's also a picture of Credit Suisse chair Horta Osorio, who has quit. And there's this story about default warnings as poorest nations face $11 billion surge in debt repayments. That sounds like the stuff of a John Perkins book about predatory foreign policy in UK and economic hitmen. We move on to the Metro, which keeps it rather more succinct. I will swear PM lied to the House. That is Dominic Cummings prepared to give an oath in Parliament, in court, I should say. Tory angst, this is the I next. Tory angst at Johnson leadership growing. They are the backbenchers and the Tory grassroots are growing increasingly discontent. We move to the Sun and Andrew's 6 in a bed, and this story promises a great deal and doesn't deliver. That's him and 5 toys when Duke sleeps at Buckingham Palace. His demands include Teddy holding a heart, Teddy with necklace, cuddly black panther, squishy grey hippo, and another hippo on green blanket. Hardly the sort of things you find at an Epstein do, but never mind. We move on to the Times, which has Javid plans NHS revolution modelled on academy schools. That sounds like another bit of Operation Red Meat. And also the big story of the day, Dominic Cummings, PM lied to Parliament about party. There's also a picture of Antonio Horta Osorio playing tennis, presumably not with Novak Djokovic. And magistrates get power to jail offenders for a year. That's the same story that The Telegraph is covering. We move on to The Express. PM, the clock is ticking. Sort energy bills crisis. It urges the Prime Minister to do. Well, according to the FT, it is already exploring doing that. There's also a picture of Angela Glover, the British tsunami victim, who died trying to save her dogs in the Tonga tsunami. And finally, last but by no means least, we have the Daily Star. And surely the story of the day, Brian, blessed be thy name, the man with the loudest voice in the world, is apparently a spiritual guru who exudes peace and tranquility. All hail the Daily Star. And so to tonight's guests, we have useful right-back Ian Stone, and we have useless right-back Josh Howie. That is you. That is a footballing reference. Are you aware of what a right-back is, Josh?
I thought you were just talking about our political positions.
No.
I would say central midfield, but OK, I'll take that.
Well, we have had this conversation because you're centre midfield when the standard's only so-so, and you drop back to right-back as it gets better.
As it gets better, and as I get older as well. I will be behind the goal by the time I'm 70.
Well, I'm already behind the goal.
I can do 20 minutes of running on the running machine. Does that count as sport?
That is winning.
Of course it does. You need to change your shoes. It's sport.
OK, good.
So for our first story, and this is reported in the Mail and elsewhere, perhaps the most infamous of the many Dominics to have risen to prominence over the last few years, Dominic Cummings, is at it again, trying to overthrow the regime through the medium of blog posts and Twitter. Boris knew about the May 20th party, he says, and lied to Parliament. Cummings is prepared to say that on oath. The PM is claiming, remember, that he was not aware in advance. There are many other photos yet to appear, says Cummings. In other words, worse is to come for number 10. Cummings will say more when Sue Gray's report is published. And perhaps most chilling of all, if you're Boris, was this. Tory MPs, every day you delay the inevitable is a day the new PM isn't spending doing stuff to save your seat. In 2024, you're asking for 18 years and a 5th term. Very, very tough. Promises won't cut it. New PM must have delivered. Tick-tock. He is determined to bring down Boris, Josh, isn't he?
Dominic Cummings is the ex from hell. Absolutely. He should never have broken up with him. He's just out to get him. He's got the sex tapes. He's got everything. He's going to go all in and just absolutely destroy. But I think it's just very funny when he says, you know, he's willing to call the Prime Minister a liar under oath. Like, that's brave. I'll call the Prime Minister, the whole country will call the Prime Minister a liar under oath. That is not brave. That's what we all know. There's been evidence time and time again. And now, of course, it's hilarious to see what the government are trying to do to shore up their support and get through. One of the things that no one's really talked about is they're talking about banning alcohol in number 10. That's one of the things that's what we're going to do now. We're going to ban alcohol and then the whole country will fall apart.
They've had enough alcohol.
I think they've had enough.
They're like, no, we're fine.
Yeah.
We don't need any more alcohol. This whole thing, on these bits of papers that you give us as sort of crib sheets, Boris Johnson knew in capitals about May the 28th.
They're the articles.
They're the articles. Well, yeah, but I know they're the articles, but it's just knew about the party and lied to Parliament. I mean, there is something Shakespearean about it. I think. I don't really know, to be honest. It's what people say.
But I think lying to Parliament and then being proven to be a liar, as opposed to just sort of general political propaganda and all the rest of it, is... I think it might even be perjury.
Right, yeah. But what about lying to us? What about lying to us? We're the people, by the way, didn't we? I didn't vote for him, but other people did, and they lied to them as well. And by the way, all those people in the Red Wall who are saying we feel like we've been lied to, well, that's because you have.
Absolutely.
But in terms of I'm talking about two things. You're talking about the moral compass, and I'm talking about the actual legal. What can actually happen.
Because he's already been.
I am talking about the moral compass. You're right, and to be honest, it's insane that we still are with Boris Johnson because everyone knows that he lies and has done through his life, and normally someone else has tidied up after him. Now he's the Prime Minister. So we're all tidying up after him, and this is what it'll come to. But banning booze at Downing Street, well, that will do the trick, won't it? Really?
I mean, he's already technically, in trouble because of lying about the wallpaper stuff.
Yeah,
so I mean, that
one hasn't gone away.
I
do find it. I think I'm susceptible to the media, and I read stories, and I'm like, oh well, maybe he's not that bad, or maybe he's awful, whatever. But today,
that's very susceptible. Depending on which paper you're reading.
I'm easy meat, easy prey, easy red meat being the expression of the day. But I find it amazing how they are able to recalibrate the public conversation and distract and do all these things.
Headlines. These are headlines and big letters and, oh, look, over there. And it's all like, I remember when my kids used to get really moody, you dangle keys in front of them, right? And that's essentially what the newspapers are doing. Dominic Cummings, do people read that? I mean, is it just a few journalists who read that?
His Substack. I try to read it, but it's hard work.
You've got to pay for it, haven't you, as well?
No. Maybe he's got one for, like, paying subscribers.
Patreon
Today's
or
one he did for free.
One other thing, by the way. I mean, I can see why Boris Johnson, he's just got his new wallpaper and furniture in. He doesn't want to leave right now, right? No. Surely he's just getting used to that. Although, have you seen it? I couldn't live in it. It was just awful, considering it was designed and paid 30 grand for it.
It's crazy, yeah. So we'll see what happens. But I think some people don't want him to go. Like within. I think that even. I don't think
he's still popular. If we moan about him on this show, we get lots of angry people.
But I don't even mean that. I mean, like, I actually believe Labour doesn't want it to. I think it serves their interests to keep him there and just I mean, if you look at the polling, Tories are just going down. Every day they're just going down, and Labour's going up.
43 to Labour, 30 to...
There hasn't been a turnaround like this. I mean, he was 11 points ahead in the election in 2019, and now he's 10 points behind. But I think the interesting thing about this as well was the Tories saying, we're going for 18 years for another election victory. They've been in power a long time. So whether Boris can win another one, but I agree with you. I think the Labour Party want him there as long as possible.
Right, we move on to The Sun for our next piece. One of the many hugely sad stories to have emerged from the Tongan tsunami. A British charity worker, Angela Glover, had moved to Tonga 5 years ago to start a new life with her husband James, and she was today found dead by her husband in scrubland after a huge search along the coastline. She worked with the Tonga Animal Welfare Society, and her husband were house-sitting in a home on the west side of the island, and she was out walking their 5 dogs. It's not clear, or she'd gone back to save the 5 dogs when the tsunami struck. And her husband, James, said this, and I find this a very powerful quote. "This is such a shock. We're ordinary people. Stuff like this doesn't happen to people like us, but then it does." Ian, it's very, very sad, and you can see why the ancients had this sort of, you know, they imbued nature with godlike qualities, the gods of the sea and so on. You can see how those...
Just took her away. And she was the only victim, or there was apparently so far, the only person that's been found is what I was reading. I think the saddest thing...
There must have been other victims.
You'd imagine so. I mean, they've lost contact with some of the islands, I believe, and they can only get in contact with the capital. They haven't managed to get to the coastal areas. That's what Jacinda Ardern was saying, the New Zealand Prime Minister, and they're 1,500 miles away or something like that. But this was incredibly powerful. I think the thing that got me was I read that she went back to rescue her dogs. Yeah. Now, we have pets, and we both agreed that I would go back into a burning building to go because they're part of the family. And so I don't know whether it's because I'm British and it's pets or something like that, but I genuinely felt emotional when I read this story. And so sad for her family. And you know, they went there, they're living this sort of dream lifestyle where she's running an animal welfare charity.
She swam with whales and...
yeah, it's incredibly sad. I imagine you're right, actually. Probably other people have lost their lives as well, but we know about this. And it's nothing but sad, I think, really, this story.
Josh, you found that difficult to understand why someone would go
Yeah,
for
I
the dog.
thought you were both idiots. I'm sorry, you both said that you would die for your dogs or you would go into a burning building. And I'd be just like...
Members of the family, though, Josh. That's the point. They are members of the family.
There are certain members of my family that I wouldn't go into a burning building.
There are certain members of my family that I wouldn't either, but the dogs, I absolutely
The thing about dogs is that they unify the family because they might hate each other, but everyone loves the dog.
This is why I'm not getting a pet.
I'll tell you a little story. I used to live on a barge in Canary Wharf, and there's an expression in Holland, their sort of equivalent of to kick the bucket. Is to fall down the gap between the barge and the jetty, literally translated. And my dog once fell down the gap between the barge and the jetty, which is where you die because, you know, you get squished. I dived in to get the dog, and without even thinking. So I can totally understand how she did that.
And I said that I would do the same thing as well. So
I mean, it's just a shame because she looked like a very beautiful woman. She was a charity worker, and
if she didn't look so beautiful, would it be less of a shame? Is that what you're saying?
No, she looked like a nice person, and as
fine. You remember people for their good qualities.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just think it's a shame that the dogs. This is what.
I see that it's drawn the focus of the story.
Yeah, no, not that it's drawn, but it's like in Afghanistan when the guy was trying to get all the dogs and save the dogs out rather than save the human beings' lives.
I don't think it was an either or.
That's what he said. That was the amount of time that it took up from officials working for the Foreign Office. It wasn't either or. That time could have been spent on getting out people who are still there who can't get out now.
You don't think about those risks, though. I think when you're in that situation, whether they always tell you not to jump in the sea to save someone that's drowning, and people always jump in the sea. You don't think about the risks to you. You go, well, I can swim, and that guy's in trouble. You just do it.
Yeah.
Anyway. If you've ever tried to get into America, you will know how rigorous their border controls can be, but strangely not in the case of Malik Faisal Akram, the 44-year-old British citizen who laid siege to a synagogue in Dallas, Texas, after flying over from the UK. Now, Josh, I'm not sure what has made me more cross about this story, whether it's the story itself or the way that it's been reported, and I know it's got under your skin as well.
It's from the beginning. I was at a gig on Saturday night when I started seeing stuff on Twitter about this. It wasn't reported for hours afterwards in any, it was only through, I'm Jewish, and it was through other Jewish people commenting on it. Even though there was this live feed, when it was finally reported, like the BBC said, they put hostage situation in inverted commas, which they've never done. Someone else put all of their previous BBC News stuff up, and they'd never said hostage situation, but it involves Jews, suddenly it's hostage situation. Then they said now that they were detained in you're not detained in like it was like just some mild inconvenience. BBC News at 10 just now, one word that they didn't say, anti-Semitism. And when the FBI did their first sort of announcement after it, they sort of said, oh, there's nothing linking like his demands to the Jewish community. Like it was like, just happens to be totally random. The guy's walking around in Texas and there's just, it could be the McDonald's or I'll go in the synagogue. It's just, I'll take a left instead of a right or whatever. The guy was an anti-Semite. He genuinely believed that Jews around the world. He went in there. The rabbi who was along with 3 other Jewish people who are on inner service, he has now said that basically this guy went in there and just assumed that Jews around the world, and he was like, look, call up the head Jew, like the head rabbi in New York, and get him to free this other anti-Semite.
The other omission in the reporting is they've constantly stressed British. Like they've almost gone out of their way to say this guy was British in practically every news report. I don't think I've seen the word Islamist once. Now, if this guy's calling for the freedom of an Al-Qaeda operative, it's fair to assume that he's some kind of extremist. And it's only when quoting his own family that they even mention the word Muslim or Islamic, let alone Islamist. And so I have an issue with that as well.
But it is the way you slant the story, isn't it? I think as well as a failure of intelligence, this is a failure of care. In the end, the guy was in this country. There were lots of occasions when he kicked off about various things. He kicked off about 9/11, and I imagine he was talking about a Jewish conspiracy at that point as well. But in the end, this is a guy who did seem to have serious mental health problems. So
But you could have mental health problems and still not be an anti-Semite.
No, hang on a minute.
Okay.
Hang on a minute. I agree with you. But I think that was just it seems to me that was almost just the outlet for his mental health issues. Agreed that Jews were the people who suffered in this particular case, but it seems to me it was a failure of care to look after someone with mental illness in this country, and then further than that, let them into America. He got a gun. I mean, there are all these things to consider as well. So it seems to me that a lot of people have failed in their duty to protect him and to protect us from him.
For sure.
And this includes hate preachers as well.
I don't disagree with a word that you've said, but I think it's easy to start blaming all these people for there is a cultural thing going on at the moment, and it is people do not want to address it.
A cultural thing. There's
a massive anti-Western sentiment and also specifically anti-Semitic sentiment.
We're talking about hate preachers, right? We're talking about hate preachers here who would have poisoned the guy's mind. Yeah. There's no doubt that happens as well. Yeah, but should that be the main focus of the story?
Sorry, it's not just coming from hate preachers. That's the reality of it. There is an issue within certain communities of anti-Semitism, and it needs to be talked about. And it's not for fear of being accused of being Islamophobic. Whilst this was going on, whilst 4 Jews were being held up by a gunman, their lives at risk, all the tweets I was seeing online are, oh no, there's going to be more Islamophobia. Oh, not just like, can we just deal with these 4 Jews who are scared for their life, who might be dead very soon? And it was just, it's really upsetting and frustrating. My children go to school, Jewish schools, there are gates, there are guards. You know, my synagogue, it's got guards. There's like special doors to get in and stuff. It shouldn't be like that.
He demanded the release of Lady Al-Qaeda. It's nice that they've got sort of, ladies now in there, don't you think, really?
Not really.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I like how you're trying to...
When I said it's nice, it's not nice at all. I know. But I like the idea of, it's Lady Al-Qaeda.
Well, it's like that. It's like in the mafia, you have Donna Imola, or whatever her name is, Don... you would say Don Corleone or Don... Anyway, it's that. Anyway, we're coming to the end
of a bit of brevity there coming after my heartfelt appeal for peace.
OK, right, we're coming to the end of part 1. We're going to go to the weather and then it's ads. We'll see you in a moment for part 2. We've got a terrific story coming up in part 2. What can I plug in part 2? I can't plug anything, but we've got lots of brilliant stories. Don't go anywhere.
Hi there. We keep the widespread clear skies overnight, and of course at this time of year that means temperatures will drop like a stone, widespread frost and fog forming. But cloudier weather towards the far north will tend to keep things frost and fog free here. That's where the mildest air is, coming around the top of this area of high pressure. But of course, near the centre of the high, with light winds and clear skies, widely foggy conditions for much of central and eastern England in particular, some very dense fog forming quite quickly after the sun goes down. Some fog patches in the south and southwest. However, here there'll also be some low cloud drifting in from the south, so that will complicate things. But a cold night for many, touch of frost in eastern and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, but widely across England and Wales. Temperatures in towns and cities, -2. In the countryside, -5. Freezing and foggy first thing then. But as cloud drifts in from the south, well, that will tend to lift the fog in places. 1 or 2 patches holding on into the afternoon in the east of England, for example. Otherwise, a lot more cloud around, I think, compared to Monday afternoon. And that cloud thick enough by the end of the afternoon in Western Scotland and Northern Ireland to give some showery outbreaks of rain. The rain turning more persistent later as a bunch of weather fronts sink southeastwards across Scotland and Northern Ireland, pushing the cloud and rain then into Northern England, parts of West Wales overnight. That, of course, means there'll be a lot more cloud in the sky on Tuesday night into the start of Wednesday compared to previous nights. And so any frost and fog tending to be more limited, not entirely out of the question, just not as widespread as recent mornings. The cloud and showery rain moves south across central and southern parts during Wednesday morning, quite quickly clearing so that after lunch many places are in the bright or even sunny skies behind the weather fronts. Showers follow, those showers turning wintry across northern Scotland, and then on Thursday into the east of England as well as eastern Scotland. It's going to feel cold on Thursday and Friday, but there will be some sunshine.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello and welcome back to Headliners. I'm Dominic Frisby, and with me tonight are two of North London's most prominent thought leaders, Josh Howie and Ian Stone. And so we begin with The Guardian and massive anger. It's good to see people high-fiving.
Badly though, bad.
And missing. Yeah. We start with The Guardian and massive anger, not quite fury, but massive anger in the Tory grassroots. It's The Guardian. The Guardian hates Boris. Is it exaggerating about this massive anger, or is it?
Well, well, it's 40% of Tory members, of grassroots Tories. I don't know how many they asked. They want Boris Johnson to quit. I think the headline really is 60% don't. Well, personally, this is not a sackable or resignation offence for 60% of Tory party members. Some people said this is not necessarily time to change the captain on the bridge. They've been inundated with emails. Again, I don't know the numbers. There aren't that many Tory party members, but they seem to decide most of what happens in this country, don't they? Who our leader is every other year. And some of them are not happy. But some of them don't want him to go yet, I think, because the local elections are coming up. And I think certain members of the Tory party don't want the new leader to have his arse handed to him in May, which is what is going to happen. I think the voters will come out and go, we want to tell you off. It doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to vote for you in the election, but right now we're not happy, and they're going to vote against the Conservative Party. And if it's the new leader, they start off with a terrible defeat. It's not a good look.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you've got a lot of people losing, a lot of councillors losing their seats.
do they really care about it? Do they really care about it? Do they? Well, if they really care, then...
There is a huge disconnect between Tory policy and what the Tory grassroots want. And there is some... I remember going to a talk before Boris was PM by him with when he was still a journalist for The Telegraph, so he was just a backbencher at the time. And I sort of stood up and asked a question, and I said, what are ministers going to do? Because this was at the time when, like, 75% of Tory grassroots wanted to leave and, like, 80% of Tory MPs were Remainers. So there was a big contradiction between the MPs and the grassroots. And I was asking, what would Boris do to reconnect MPs with its grassroots? And Boris's answer was, well, if you look, kids are really libertarian, so we need to just get with the kids. And I remember thinking that was the most patronising, empty, vacuous, contempt for the question answer that I've ever heard.
Which is like his normal answers, isn't it, really, to be fair?
I'm hearing a lot of grassroots. I'm focusing, there's a lot of the grassroots talk, they're either the real talk, they're the grassy ones, not the big trees, but are you a grassroots Tory? I
am. There's a lot of people really believe in what they do, and they give their lives and they give their time fighting for the kind of England that they want. It might not be the Britain that you two guys want, but it's the kind of Britain that they think is best for Britain.
I think it's instructive you said England first and then started talking about Britain as well, because there is a different bit of a gap between some of the grassroots who want really England. They don't really care about Scotland or Wales. I mean, let's face it, Jacob Rees-Mogg the other day talking about the leader of the Scottish Tories being not a particularly big figure in the party. Well, that is not someone who cares. Yeah. No, but that's not someone who cares about the union.
They've got no support in Scotland.
So, OK, then we'll let that one go.
But in terms of the relationship between the MPs and the grassroots...
Yeah, but it's not good optics to just sort of go, oh, yeah, Scott, who cares about them?
I thought it was right. I thought it was amusing.
Jacob Rees-Mogg and optics are not words that go together, let's be fair.
He's a great guy.
For what?
Oh, my God.
I'm prepared to have this conversation at length, but after the show. Right, The Independent is next. I've been on the bill. You know when Jacob Rees-Mogg did his big speech at the IEA that went viral just before Christmas?
Yeah.
And he talked about the comedian.
Did you open for him?
No, he opened for me. And his speech got like 10 million views on Twitter, and mine got none.
Couldn't follow Jacob Rees-Mogg.
I did, but the rest of the country isn't interested, even though I was better on the night. Right, The Independent is next, and our correspondent on the Ukrainian border, where a Russian invasion seems imminent, is Josh Howie. Josh, what is the news?
Inevitable and imminent. This is what the Conservative MP was claiming last night, chairman of the Commons Defence Committee, and it's getting pretty scary. I mean, it has been building. Well, it's been ongoing, obviously, for years, but it seems to have accelerated over the last week or so with the cyber attacks in the Ukraine, and it seems like any peace negotiations are going nowhere. And they're now sending British troops to Ukraine, whether that's going to make any difference or not, whether that's going to genuinely, hold them off.
Well, how many? I think you surely the answer. One bloke.
Three.
Get back, Vladimir.
I think, aren't they sending anti-tank technology or something?
Well, Ben Wallace made a speech in Parliament and said there's going to be a new security assistance package, which may well be, human packages.
Well,
yeah, but this is...
Virus control.
What's the word? Say that again.
A new security assistance package is flying out right now on a C-17 transport aircraft.
His name's Bob.
Yeah. And he's a big bloke, Bob, and he ain't going to take no nonsense.
You know when you're Vladimir Putin, and you ask the guy in the front row, what do you do for a living? And he goes, I'm a project manager.
Oh, yeah, that
you never know what kind of project.
I always say Kings and Queens of England. You do that one?
Yeah.
Because I did different walls once when I was in primary school. The house stank for weeks. This
security assistance package is the project manager of military help.
Yeah, but is it going to work? Is it going to work? I thought, as I understand it, there are 100,000 Russian troops on the border, and I don't imagine...
Much as I admire the British Armed Forces, I think in a war between Russia and England that takes place, or Britain, sorry, I've done the England thing again, that takes place on the Ukrainian border, Russia is you've got to favour Russia.
Well, if you think they have some money on it, right, you won't get particularly good odds, I imagine. But I think this also, can anyone do anything? I mean, can anyone? Joe Biden doesn't want to get involved, and so who's going to stop him in the end? And it doesn't seem like anyone is. So I guess we wait for the action to begin. And I don't mean that in a flippant way, but, I think the highlights are on.
OK, while we're on the subject of security assistance packages, we go to our next story. ballistic missiles in North Korea. Who is covering this from?
I am. I'm doing this. The missile threat. The North Koreans have fired a ballistic missile towards Japan, is what it said here, right? This is in The Sun, by the way.
It's their fourth in 2.5 weeks.
In fourth provocative launch of 2022. That doesn't tell you how many launches they've had, and some of them weren't provocative. They were just missiles that went poof. Oh, lovely missile. Anyway, it's the fourth one, and it's been launched towards Japan. I have a question about that. If we fired a missile and it landed in the Irish Sea, would that be a missile towards America? Well, I mean, we are...
A missile towards Ireland.
Well, exactly, but I mean westwards is what I'm saying. But I really find North Korea... I mean, they've got 25 million people in the country, right? 20 million of them are starving to death and the other 5 million are a bit peckish, I think.
Yeah.
And they've got a standing army of 1 million men and women. The only thing that they're really good at is these massive synchronised gymnastic displays, as far as I can... And they're great at those. But I don't know whether this is a real threat or not.
I don't know.
I genuinely don't know.
Whenever North Korea comes up, there's something intrinsically comic about it, even though, you know, it's nothing comic if you're one of the 25 million citizens.
Not at all. Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong is dead. Well, that is very ill. There were all those jokes. But I don't know if it's a real threat or not. They're not a threat to me at the moment.
They're putting... so Biden's doing some more sanctions. I mean, how many more sanctions... Can they do, what else could you put?
You couldn't get cheese.
Oh, well, that's very tough. Yeah, lactose intolerant. But it's like with your telling off your kids, and you're like, there's only so far that you can, you can't have the iPad, you can't have sweets, you've got to go to bed at 7:30. And then if they call your bluff on that, it's like, OK, you better just shoot some missiles.
The only way
there's nothing else to do.
Is Trump's plan to develop the coast as real estate, as that's what he was planning to do, wasn't it, Donald Trump? Turn it into
Get some
real
golf
estate.
courses.
There won't be any more missiles after that.
It may work. We've tried everything else.
Right, we've reached the end of part 2. We're going for an ad break now, but join us for part 3, when we will find out about a hypnotic cult pyramid scheme and how you can invest. See you in a moment.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for...
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to part 3 of Headliners. I'm Dominic Frisby, and with me are the North London metropolitan elite of comedy, Josh Howie and Ian.
We know.
And we start
euphemism there.
with the Express next, and this story involves Houthi, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, rebels, Abu Dhabi, and kamikaze drone attacks. Perhaps you could shed some light on this.
Yeah.
Josh. Is this you, Josh?
Well, surely there's an oxymoron. I mean, the kamikaze drone attacks.
Yeah, I thought that.
It's just a drone attack.
No, people are riding them. It's like Slim Pickens in, the end of Doctor Strangelove.
Presumably they're blowing up their own drones. Is that why they're called?
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, it's a bit. It's going
a
little
stretch.
Bit. Come on, guys.
It's a betrayal of the word kamikaze.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to get lots of letters from our Japanese viewers.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I might write a letter to them, just say, guys, sort it out, please. Stop. Just call them drones. And whilst you're blowing up tankers. So this is what they've done in the UAE. They've blown up 3 tankers. It's quite complicated, but basically UAE and Saudi Arabia are getting ever closer. And the rebels here are backed by Iran. So the Middle East is basically split now between Iran, and then they're backing a lot of people who are basically against Saudi Arabia and UAE and their allies. So this is the next step in that.
When you hear that, and then you hear Ukraine, and then you hear North Korea firing your missiles, you do start to go a bit jumpy, don't you?
Well, I don't watch the news as much as I used to be honest with you. I probably shouldn't say that on the show, but that's the truth of it. It's a bit horrifying.
I might just break my diet. There's just no point. What's the point?
Have some carbs.
Yeah,
honestly, have some carbs.
I really want to eat some sweets. So yeah, it's.
Did they? When you say they blew up the tankers, have they actually sunk them?
Well, this is what I couldn't.
No significant damage from the incident. I mean, at the end of all that, you go, there was no significant damage from the incident.
Well, I don't know. They did say blow them up. Look, who knows the truth as to
the Express, if anyone knows, the Express would know.
But it is another step up, and the fact it's on UAE soil is quite concerning.
OK, for our next story, we turn to The Guardian, and this story is such a mouthful, Ian. I'm going to let you introduce it. Do you know the story I'm talking about?
This is the man who seeks to change his name.
The man who seeks to change
his name. His name is Nick Newman, and he's applied to the High Court to change his name to Kill the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill. Or Mr. Kill the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill, I guess.
But it's Kill the Police for short, right?
Well, very possibly. I guess that it would be abbreviated to that, because he's basically saying that the Police and Crime Bill is a serious and piece of legislation that there's many things that human rights and protest groups and organisations and even Parliament's Joint Committee have said it would criminalise causing serious annoyance with potential 10-year sentences for offenders. Well, anyone who says the letter H, I'm happy for them to get 10-year prison sentences. People who eat with their mouths open as well. I just looked at you. No, not because you do. You didn't do that, right? But
he knows.
Anyway, the point is that this guy's changed his name, and he does say, "My hope is to share a humorous action with a serious message to convince a couple of lords to vote the right way." There's something funny about a couple of lords, 2 or 3 lords, But anyway, whether it works or not, Priti Patel's very keen on this whole thing.
I thought you ever change your name, Josh, to more subsidy for Crouch End or something like that?
Really not that bothered about Crouch End. But it is funny that he said, "Oh yeah, my hope is to, as he say, do a humorous action here," and then he goes on to explain. He's like, "It was clearly not something that would be useful in everyday life, and in fact, it could be described as really annoying to use. To my friends and family who think the name is going to be too annoying, my answer is just call me." But the point is, if you have to explain a joke, it ain't that funny.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair point, actually. And one more thing, by the way, if he's talking about serious annoyance, there is something seriously annoying about changing your name, is there not? To kill the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill.
What's the acronym for it?
No. I'm saying it's just very annoying.
Oh yeah, he's very
This is obviously something he feels passionate about, so I admire him at least for that. Even if it is a little bit annoying.
Well, I might change my name to Bukayo Saka for Prime Minister then. Do you know who that is?
No.
No, OK. If it's a footballer.
No. I was thinking you'd change your name to Grassroots. Grassroots Dominic.
They're OK, really.
He'll keep it Grassroots. The Star is next with pyramid schemes, brainwashing and cults. Josh, how do we invest in this?
Very good. So Brenna Kincaid, 28, from Boston. Suppose she joined this pyramid scheme 5 years ago. Surely that's bad. If it's a pyramid scheme like that, and then it turns out to be a cult. So she's joining something that's bad, and then she finds out it's just a little bit worse than bad. She sort of said she watched a documentary and that kind of made her realise about cults, to kind of make her realise, oh, this all applies to me and how I have no friends now and all I'm trying to do is make this money. And also
I don't think she realised it was a pyramid scheme at first.
No, but then what's funny is
some people do go into pyramid schemes knowing they're pyramid schemes, but believing that there's a greater fool down the road.
Yeah, I'm not. You know.
It's called the stock market. No, I'm genuine. Actually.
But they sent her to a hypnotist to kind of rewire her, and the hypnotist is the one who actually kind of got her out of this pyramid scheme and sort of gradually kind of revealed to herself what really was going on. So that's been 5 years of her life. It sounds pretty rubbish. She was told she was going to be making $1 million a year. She made 50,000. Over 5 years, so that is a terrible investment of time. No, that's a bad pyramid scheme. She's a rubbish pyramid scheme person.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea, and I think everyone should do it.
I do think, though, there is a role for indoctrination, because I find, for example, if you ever want to do a diet, you know, you sort of have to indoctrinate yourself first that this diet is going to work and you need to lose this weight and fasting works.
Which day of your 5-2 are you on?
Well, I'm on day 2. But you do, and that's why you end up boring everyone else by going, I'm on the thing. But it's all part of the indoctrination. And similarly with investments, you know, if you want to make an investment and you really want to stay... You have to believe in the company or whatever it is in the story, and then you have to keep telling yourself that story in order to stay invested. So there is a big role for indoctrination, and it gets abused.
I once got involved in something like this. This is true, cleaning products of some sort, and I tried to give it a go, but I didn't get very far up the pyramid. I'll be perfectly honest with you.
Maybe you should have learned which cleaning products they were. That might have been a better... just some sort of...
Some cleaning products. Do you want some bleach? Have some bleach. It'll help.
It
helps COVID.
I got involved with a guy in advertising. We put in 50-50. We each put in $1,500. It would have been early noughties, maybe late 90s.
That was when it was worth a bit.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't an insignificant amount of money.
It's not a small amount of money.
We thought we were going to earn 8 times 8, so we thought we were going to earn 48 grand, 24 grand each. Now, how's that right?
And how much did you make?
No, we lost it.
You lost the money?
Yeah. Welcome to Headliners with instant maths.
24 grand between... We thought we were going to make 24 grand between the two of us.
Yeah.
12 grand each. And we ended up losing it.
This sounds to me like the plot of Trainspotting, if I remember correctly. Isn't that what happened at the end of the film?
Fair enough.
And did you run off to Amsterdam with it?
I think there was one in Albania where it almost brought down the whole country got involved.
Well, because they had 24 grand, it was too much. The economy crashed.
Right, we move on from my investment failings. The Independent is next, and yet another strain of the coronavirus has been found. This one in wild leopard cubs in India. Ian, one wonders if the bottom of the coronavirus barrel has been well and truly scraped.
All I'm thinking of wild, he was livid, is all I hear in my head. It was a wild leopard cub in India, and they detected a norovirus. I don't know why they were looking for it in a wild... Come here, come here.
To protect Boris, like he needs anything he can do to help him at the moment.
The source of this is the Independent.
What's the source?
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
It's sort of
it's the Independent. Study highlights need for screening wild animals to track evolution of coronavirus. I guess scientists have to follow it around and see where it's going and see what it's doing. But honestly, I mean, this was number 15 story that we had tonight, and I think there's a reason for that.
It sounds to me like a very tenuous way that some wildlife organisation is trying to secure some kind of grant. Is what
maybe, but I mean,
to me.
Well.
Sorry,
all I was going to say was they learned that lions in Hyderabad and Chennai Zoo were getting infected with coronavirus from humans. That's why you got to keep a 2-metre distance from lions.
Just for that.
It's very, very important.
There is some positive news.
Yeah.
Put them in masks. Put the lions in masks. Put the whole animal kingdom in masks, and that's going to really make a big difference.
Yeah. And don't give them work if they haven't had the vaccine.
Yeah, get them on Zoom, put them in masks.
Oh, we knew this was going this way.
Don't let them travel.
Don't let them play in tennis tournaments in Australia.
Right, The Star is next, and porn stars are now creating life-size replica dolls of themselves to make fantasies come true. I've got one of the man who's come to fix the shower.
So I've had to do extensive research on this story.
I'm glad you have.
Just
this is why you weren't so good on Abu Dhabi and Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly. I spent too long on this one, going out into the field and yes,
read the print, in fact, is what it was. Go on.
well, they've created life-size sex dolls of porn stars. And this is the most disturbing part of it, is that you can rent them. That's just...
Rent?
That is just nasty.
Rent.
You can rent them for 3 days for £437, quite a specific amount of money there.
Can you buy them outright?
You can buy them for $7,308. Very specific amount here, but they are extensive. That's pounds.
So they must have they've translated that. It's 10 grand, it's $10,000.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
You missed the maths. But they are extensively sanitized by each time when they're retired. I would hope they're burnt. You want them to be just burning rubber.
Where the previous users wearing masks.
Yeah, that is fine. Yeah, you have to sign a declaration. It's also very nice. I think this company called Inferno who are doing this. Says they're the first company to supply for gay, bisexual, straight and trans, as they believe there should not be any prejudice within the sex doll market.
That's
and
fair.
I think that's brilliant.
It's
What
nice.
an example to the rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Inferno.
I was going to talk about the cleaning as well, but you put my mind at rest now, to be honest with you, because it's pretty... I just find it a bit odd, I guess.
It's really odd.
But, you know, there's... that's what makes the world go round.
Remember, like, blow-up dolls in the 80s, I suppose. I never even really got them.
Well, the people are lonely.
You know, if
people are lonely, but at least now you can have one with the face of your favourite. Is it just the face, by the way, or is it the features as
everything,
well?
but they made a big point that they could have the same hair, the same body hair. But I'm
None.
most
of them.
Yeah. Unless
I mean, it's a strange story, but there obviously is a market for it.
Yeah, I mean, if only you got that 24 grand.
And the whoever does the investment relations for that company is really pleased because they've got their story in the Star.
Yeah, and now
sales.
GBNews.
GBNews. Yeah. We've got one more story. I think we've got time for one more story, and we're going to cover this story of Spain getting involved. This is covered in the Express, so it must be true. Spain is getting involved in the Falklands argument, or as they call it, the Malvinas. War of words between the UK and Argentina.
Yeah,
Ian.
in the Express, Spain wades into Falklands row. 4 ex-prime ministers urged talks after war clash. What happened was that there was some sort of meeting of the Falklands 40 Margaret Thatcher Day Lecture. Right, so I imagine it's a pretty pro-Falklands event.
Dominic, you opened for that, didn't you?
I'm literally asking myself, who books this?
Yeah. And the Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, said, our enemies should not doubt Britain's determination to stand up to bullies, to defend those that cannot defend themselves, and our values. Distance will not deter Britain, nor will the scale of the challenge. And then he said, history is littered with the consequences of those that underestimated this small island, right? He should have had Land of Hope and Glory playing behind him when he did. But this has upset the Argentinians who... Is it Argentines or Argentinians? Anyway, it's upset them because they feel that, you know, our countries, this is like 40 years ago. Almost like let it go. And so the Argentinians have basically said the Malvinas will always be Argentinian, and the Spanish ex-prime ministers have got involved.
Argentina have got problems at home. They've got runaway inflation, not for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's as though both countries could do with a distraction that takes the eye of the general public off domestic affairs.
So we're not going to start a war with them again, are we? Or do you think they say to them, just sneak in?
I think it's just filler, but who knows?
Right, OK.
Have you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just thought when they did give that talk and he said that, our enemies should not doubt Britain's determination to stand up to bullies or to defend those who can't defend themselves. I'm thinking, except for Syria or like Ukraine, although maybe now England is going to step up and we'll see, hopefully. Great Britain. We'll see.
We're not the mighty nation we once were.
No, well, and Bob's busy on the Ukraine-Russia border, isn't he?
Absolutely. Right, gents, we've got about 10... You can have 5 seconds each to plug what you're doing this weekend. What are you both... Are you doing gigs this weekend?
Yeah, I'm gigging in London, which is great. Comedy Carnival, which I love doing. I'm seeing it, and it's a fun gig. And
I'm seeing it?
Yeah, someone pulled out. Someone dropped out.
Hang on, have you got the same gig? I think I thought
we
I
better
might
call
be
our
doing-
agents
What are you
after
doing
this.
here?
I'm doing Up the Creek and Top Secret.
Up the Creek,
good,
my
yeah.
first ever gig, and what a fantastic gig it is. Ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. It's been a real pleasure having you join us this evening. Thanks to my guests, Ian Stone and Josh Howie. There'll be more headliners at the same time tomorrow with Simon in the hot seat, and I don't know who his guests are. It's always exciting we get to find out. But until then, from all of us here, cheerio.
Hi there. We keep the widespread clear skies overnight, and of course at this time of year that means temperatures will drop like a stone, widespread frost and fog forming. But cloudier weather towards the far north will tend to keep things frost and fog free here. That's where the mildest air is, coming around the top of this area of high pressure. But of course near the centre of the high with light winds and clear skies